Good morning, everybody. And hello, whatever time it is, if you're doing the post-live viewing. Okay. It is Sunday, January 22nd, 11 a.m. I am you've seen me say things like this in the past few weeks, how the page numbering is there's like a kind of a fuzziness around the page numbering at this point for reasons I don't want to get into. But we're just going to call when I'm working on page 51. I am a couple days behind, probably. I might be able to finish the page today. It's possible it will go into tomorrow for two reasons. One, I took basically a day off to run up to Flagstaff for a getaway. But more so, that wouldn't have been a huge disruption. The big disruption was when I got to this page, and this is something I talked about a few weeks ago. I realized changes I had made in the drawing of it. It's not the script, it's more like how I'm drawing things and little sequences of events that I'm putting in the drawing necessitated making a change downstream, as a result. Which meant on this page 51, I'm looking at my thumb for what that page was going to look like, and it looks totally different now. Basically, totally different panels, totally different sequence of events, totally different views of how I imagine things, where characters would be and how you're looking at them and what you're seeing. I just basically scrapped it all because I had a different idea to make everything fit, again, with a change I had made 10 pages ago, 12, something like that. So that took some time kind of figuring out, what are my new panels? That's what put me behind more than anything. But I'm happy with the choices I've made. The page is going to be better because of it. And then it's really, the changes are limited to this page. Once I make these changes, all my plans for future pages, there's nothing to change. It's just I had to make an adjustment with this. I know it's kind of vague. You don't know what I'm talking about. Whatever. The point is, I scrapped plans for the page I'm working on. I had to kind of come up with a new layout, new panels from scratch. I did that. That put me behind, though. Okay. The other thing I've been working on. So, and I thought this could be the Sunday sermon. This is what I was going to maybe talk about this morning. Sorry, I was obviously still chewing stuff when I went live. So, because I'm nearing the end of drawing D vs. M 1979, the third book in the D vs. M series, even though I do intend to take some time off between finishing 79 and throwing myself into the next D vs. M, D vs. M 4, D vs. M 2001. I am still thinking a lot. That doesn't, the brain always runs, and I'm always thinking about not just D vs. M 4, but 5 and 6 at all times. And ideas for those bubble up all the time. Now, when I say ideas for them, not the basic concept, not what I think the basic story is going to be, but the particulars, like how I'm, like what the little beats within it. Like I know what 4, 5, and 6 are about, and I know, you know, who the characters are, and I know basically like it's going to start here, and then this and this and this will happen, and it's going to end here. Like I know all that, but there's a lot more to a story than just knowing like this is how it starts, then this happens, and this happens, and this happens, and then this is where it ends. Like there's a lot that, you know, the story is in those little moments in between, like deciding how to get from A to B to C. That's what I'm thinking about all the time. And those ideas can bubble up at any time, when you're in the shower, when you're driving to work, when you're taking a walk, like whenever. So, you know, this is why you probably hear writer types say all the time, like you need to keep like a journal or something like that. I don't keep a physical journal because it's 2023. I have my phone. And I don't love typing on the phone, maybe because I'm old. I just, it just feels slow. I hate doing the little, so I use the voice memo thing, which is in, you know, your iPhone. You've probably seen it there. And, you know, some of this might be preaching to the choir. There's probably a lot of, I know a lot of fellow creatives watch these. They're probably very hip to the voice memo thing, but just to show you where it is or what it looks like. You see, it is the middle row, far right icon. That one. Anyway, that's what I tend to do. I'll be out walking usually or driving, and I'll have an idea, something for D versus M 4, 5, or 6, or all of them. Just like a bigger idea of like, this is something I want to thread through, like the, you know, the next ones. And I can't sit and type, or I don't want to. I just open up voice memo and just talk out the idea and have it recorded. Sometimes you get some strange looks. Like I remember when I used to, you know, go and hike. I used to live next to this park. There was a hiking trail or a walking trail. You're walking along and you're just talking into your phone. I mean, they probably assume you're on the phone with somebody, but whatever. Anyway, the side effect of this is, now I'm very good at doing that. I'm very good at, when I have an idea, making sure to record it. Because I do know, and I think anybody else who's done this, they know that this is a very real, very scary possibility. You can have a great idea and not write it down immediately or not record it immediately and forget it. And that is a hard, hard feeling. That's tough to know. Like it still happens to me to this day. I'll be driving and I'll be almost home, and I'll think like, oh no, I've got it. I have it. I'll get in and I'll put my keys down and I'll, you know, take off my shoes and then I'll go and write it down, and it's gone. It's gone. I know I had an idea and I knew I would liked it. You know, I was excited about it, and now it's just like, who knows? That is a terrible, terrible feeling. That will get you trained on, you know, recording things as they come in, because it can go that fast. It's a very weird, very mysterious process where ideas come from, how they bubble up, and if they'll come back. There's this concept. So we've all had this experience. You have a dream, you wake up, you remember it pretty clearly when you first wake up, but a couple hours later, like it's gone, like you don't have it, okay? But now that's par for the course. But you probably also have had that experience where you're having a dream, and within the dream, you know, like, oh, this is that same dream I've had before. Like it's familiar, but you never would have remembered it outside of the dream. You know what I'm saying? So that's apparently, I just encountered this a few years ago, and it's a concept that's been stuck in my head because I think it's interesting and applicable in a lot of different other areas. That's That's why I'm going to come full circle to the note stuff. There are state-specific thoughts and memories. As in, your brain needs to have, like, it needs to be in a particular kind of state for you to remember certain things. First of all, think any certain things to begin with, but then also to remember it later. And the reason you're forgetting a dream is because your waking state is different from your dreaming state, from your sleeping state. And the reason you remember the dream when you're having the dream again is because now your brain is back in the state where, so just that, it's a neat concept, state-specific memories. You don't forget something till you're in a place, or in the same, your brain is tuned in the same way. You're in the same kind of mental space as you were. And once that shifts, then you can forget anything you had in that previous space. And then if you go back to it, now it comes back to you, okay? I think ideas, like creative ideas or inspiration, is probably something like that. And that's how sometimes you can lose it. Sometimes you can get it back, but that's why sometimes, because you're in a particular kind of, whether you realize it or not, there's something about you, what you're doing, the meditative kind of act of taking a walk or taking a shower or, driving, whatever the thing is, where now you've created a mental state and now you get an idea, but now it's state specific. You get out of the car, you finish your walk, you get out of the shower, you're getting like to go to do your next thing, and now you don't have it. It's gone. It's because you've shifted mental states. The bottom line here is take notes. But that's what's interesting. So I'm good at making the notes. I'm bad at transcribing and doing anything with them. I will sit and make voice notes literally for months. And then they just end up like they're just sitting in my phone. And what I have to make myself do from time to time is, okay, time to sit down and play all these and transcribe them. I don't have like I know you can buy them, but I don't have like a voice to text thing in my phone. So what I do is I play them and I sit and enter them in a Word document. And that also allows me to sort it a little bit, because what you'll find, and this is what's interesting too, again, maybe with the state specific thing. Let's say I'll have an idea, and I'm just making this up. This has nothing to do with any story I'm writing. But let's say I have an idea in January. Let's say a guy robs a bank. He's robbing a bank, and it's the first time he's ever robbed a bank. Okay. And I'll get it down in my phone. And I'll totally forget about it. Because now like it's out, and now you even have, I think your brain is like, okay, I don't have to think about it so much consciously. 4 months later, it will bubble up again, and it'll be slightly refined. It'll be, he's robbing a bank for the first time, and in the middle of robbing the bank, he realizes he never loaded the gun, and now he's afraid someone's going to notice his gun's not even loaded. That will, and you don't even remember, you might even think this is the first time you thought that. And you did in a way, but it's a refinement of the original idea. So you'll put that in there. And then 3 months later, there'll be another piece. That's what's kind of interesting about going through these, especially in a batch after 6 months or a year. You can see ideas evolve. But each time I can tell when I'm listening to myself, each time I thought this was not an original idea, but I thought it's maybe the first time I've been recording it. I don't remember the last note I made, but the idea is slightly refined, which is, now that I can't even explain that. Maybe a neuroscientist can, but to me that indicates the idea is in there, and like it's processing, it's refining, it's, you're elaborating it in your mind, but not at all consciously. And then finally you're doing something. The state is just right. Driving, walking, taking a shower, meditating, sitting in the park, whatever your thing is, whatever the thing is where it seems like the ideas come. And it bubbles up and you feel like, oh, there's an idea, but it's an idea you've had that you just don't remember. And it's evolved, even though you haven't been actively thinking about it. I think that's kind of fascinating and mysterious and interesting. Let's see, I'm seeing the chats going off and I don't know. Dee Dee, hello, good morning. It does. It does. Attempting the impossible task of trying to multitask and play Yahtzee with my son and mom while listening to the wisdom. That's a lot. That's a lot of multitasking. How does that work for you, Gary? Voice notes. I never do that. I write everything down, notepad. Yeah, I think, you know, for me, it works. I like it. I find there's something about actually physically writing. Like, let's say, usually I'm doing it because it's not convenient for me to physically write it down. Like, if I'm taking a walk, it's not convenient for me to, like, you know, sit and scribble something, even if I had a pad and pen, which I usually don't. But writing or even typing slows me down, and there's something about the approach to it in my head that structures it, where if I'm just talking, it can just come out, and I'm not like tweaking and finessing and editing as I go. If I'm writing, I might be doing that, or at the very least, I might be economizing, where it's like I don't want to sit and just write 1,000 words on this. I want to try and like, let me distill this, where I don't feel that pressure if I'm just voice memoing. Like if I'm just talking it out. With that also, the reason I'm bringing this all up is maybe this was understood. I was going through and like, okay, time to clear out all the voice memos. So I was just sitting, playing them one after the other and transcribing them. And it helps sometimes. I find I'm getting the same idea every few months and it's basically unchanged. Or like I was describing before, maybe the latest version is the most refined version. Therefore, I don't need to transcribe all the older ones. Like in the made up example I gave of like idea 1, guy's robbing a bank and he's never done it before. Idea 2, he realizes in the middle of it, like his gun isn't loaded and now he's like freaked out. Like idea 3, idea 4, like maybe idea 4 is like, okay, this has all the previous ideas in it. I don't need to transcribe those first 3 or 4. I can just do the latest version of it. Sometimes I'll be playing through this and I'll find an idea that I was excited about at the time, but I decided to go in a different direction 3 months later. It's like, and sometimes I remember that when I'm doing the voice memo, it'll be saying like, in the previous notes, for D versus M5 so far, this character's attitude is blah, 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 blah. But I think it might be better if like, okay, well now it's like, now if I have an older note, that's the old version, I don't need to transcribe that because I'm more excited about the new idea. Like I'm throwing out all the old stuff. I would rather personally sort through my ideas that way. Like just take a pile of them and look at them all laid out and say like, okay, is this the one that I'm going to actually bother putting in a Word document for later? So Thursday, what I did is I sat, because I literally had probably 12.5 voice memos talking about every different thing. Ideas for a trailer for D vs. M 1979. Ideas for D vs. M 4 and 5 and 6. Ideas for like maybe ways to like thread them all together. Like just every possible thing. So I just sat and played them and typed them all into a Word document, unless it was a thing, like I said, where I knew like that's an abandoned idea. I don't need that anymore. And I ended up with, I'm looking at the document right now, 8 pages of what, this is single spaced, by the way, 8 pages. I mean, sometimes I'll do breaks to separate ideas, but it's 8 pages, 2,850 words of just ideas about mostly the last 3 D versus M's. And so now what I have to do is take this dump that I've written out. I broke it into sections. So there's the D versus M4, 5, and 6 sections, and then there's more like global stuff and other things. For each one of these D versus M's, I have its own Word document that's all my ideas so far and the basic outline and the premise and all that. I need to basically cut and paste in. So I basically want to empty now this document. This document is all sorts of different things. I want to take, okay, well, this is a D versus M4 thing. Let's move that to the D versus M4 Word doc. This is a D versus M5 thing. Let's move that to there. So until there's nothing left in this 8-page thing. And then eventually, when the time comes to write the script for D versus M4, then I can open the D versus M4 doc. I have every note and thought and idea I've ever had for D versus M4. The first thing would probably be to rearrange it so the ideas are in order of what I imagine the flow of the story is. And that is a document that I will have open while I'm writing the script. I'll make my first, and so then I'll keep referring to it. Like I'll see all these chunks that I've written, all these ideas I had, all these like maybe this, maybe that. I'll look at that and decide at the time that I'm writing, like, do I want to pull this? And so some of that, it won't get pulled in exactly, but I'll basically be like, okay, that's the idea. And then that'll help me go forward. That is the advantage of actually doing it physically, being able to doodle and draw, especially with something like comic ideas. That's also, I don't want to show them because some of them would be spoilers. Some of them are actually stuck along the base of my monitor. I have Post-it notes everywhere. And sometimes that will be an actual physical note. Like I'll be sitting at my desk and get an idea and real quickly just write it down just to get it out of my head and go back to whatever I was doing. But most of my Post-it notes are basically thumbnails for panels of either this D versus M I'm working on or future ones. Like I have a very clear, it'll hit me where it's like, this is the panel. This is the panel in D versus M5, this is what it's going to look like. And I'll sit and I've had right here, I'm not going to show you because it's a spoiler. Right here, I've had a doodle of what the cover of D versus M 1979 will look like. That's probably 2 years old. Like that's just been sticking there waiting. And I don't even need it anymore. Like now I've looked at it enough where I remember like this is what the cover is going to be. But there's also a panel right here. I'm not going to show you. It's a panel that will be on page. It's a panel I will be drawing for real in probably about 5 weeks. That's another one that I doodled before I even did page layouts, before I was even figuring out like how are my pages even puzzling together. I was like I was like this is going to be a panel at the end of it. And I doodled it out, and there were, even though it's just very rough and very much a sketch, there were elements of it. It's like I don't want to deviate. This is the kind of thing I'm going for. And I put it up on my monitor. And it's been there for probably like 15 months. This panel that I'll be drawing in 4 weeks. Like I was like, this one, remember this. So because I do trust. I've talked about this in I think some of my other videos. I'm a big believer in like when an idea comes and it hits just right, like you can't even explain why. It's not that it's so spectacular, it's not that but there's just something about it where you're like, that's it, that has to be it for reasons that I can't explain. So let's see here. Yes. I'm guilty of losing creative thoughts from not seizing the moment, writing it down. It can happen. Now, like I said, on the other hand, so sometimes this is something, going through this process of transcribing basically 6 or 8 months worth of notes made me realize that at least sometimes that fleeting idea, it's not so fleeting, it actually continues to bubble up. I know there were at least a couple instances of me doing a voice memo. It's like, what if da 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 for D versus M6? And then 6 months later, what if? And I still, both times, I think this is like the first time I've encountered this idea. So, though I'm sure you can totally forget an idea and it's gone because there was something very weird and particular about that moment, and you're not going to recreate it. You're never going to find your way back to that weird little thing in the forest that you found that one time. And that's why you should do this. Rather than be too racked with grief that you lost it, I guess you just have to hope that it will come back. You may not recognize it. You may not know that, oh, that was that thing I forgot that one time. You may not, because like I said, sometimes I was having aha moments that weren't actually aha moments. It was the same idea that was bubbling up, over several months. I think that's the thing. If you know you forgot the idea, which I know I did just about a week ago, some idea about something, just trust like it will probably come back. I may not know it. I may not remember it. But there is some possibility it will come back. There's some chance it's not gone for good. But Post-its are great for quick notes. Yeah. Yeah, no, I've got a pile of like Post-its are, and then I can also stick them where like I can either keep them right here in my field of view, so I'm thinking about them all the time. What I sometimes do, I don't know if I have any in it right now because I'm nearing the end, but with my, my page plan, sometimes I'll stick one in just to remind me. So when I get there, I remember like, oh yeah, there was something I wanted to do with this, something different. Yeah, Post-its are great. Book 5, yeah. Let's see here. I remember being amazed by my friend who's a graphic artist when he had 3 monitors working on simultaneously. I can't. Yeah, I have a dual monitor set up at work, and I have to admit I don't love it. I would rather have, and it's something I might do. This year I need to get a new computer. Like mine it's an iMac. It works okay, but it's struggling. And you can't update it anymore. Like there are no new systems. You can't install any OS updates. Which means I can't update Adobe anymore, because to get to the most current version of Adobe, I need the most current Mac OS. It sucks. It sucks. And now, like even my Microsoft Office is warning me. It's like we can't update because your computer's basically because your OS is too old. So I need a new computer this year. Certainly before I start drawing D versus M4. I'm not excited about it because it's going to be expensive. I've looked at what I need, and I'm not going crazy with it, and I don't need some stupid gaming rig or some crazy multimedia thing. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money you'd rather not spend. And what's annoying about Macs now, not the iMacs, but if you go a step up to like the Mac Studio thing, they don't come with a monitor, which is really, as if it wasn't expensive enough. Now I got to go buy a monitor, where normally it used to just come with it. Anyway, oh, and then how is this? This doesn't make any sense to me at all. Like I've got this old iMac here, okay, that I can't update anymore. Why can't I just use it as a display? Why isn't there a way just to use it as a monitor? Stupid. Anyway, not only am I going to be computer shopping, I'm going to be monitor shopping. Rather than a dual screen setup, or a triple screen setup. I would prefer just one of these like super wide monitors where I have like all the room in the world to spread things out. I don't want to have to turn my head too far to a second screen. I don't want to have, there's also, I don't know, I just don't love it. I have it at work, I don't love it. Since we can't super chat you, I don't. Yeah, and I super chat, I think you need a certain number of subscribers or something. I forgot what they're, like, that's not something I, maybe that's something I'll have to do like later this year if I feel like, what I'm hoping, this is what I'm hoping for computer funds. I'm going to be doing my taxes, and I usually always get a refund. So I'm expecting to get a refund this year. So that'll be a chunk of money. I'll also be releasing D versus M #3. And I'm hoping it's not, you know, I mean, you always, it'd be nice if it sold a ton, but even if it sells about what the past ones have sold, that will be a chunk of money as well. And I have a Comic-Con to go to, which I would expect to sell more comics. So hopefully between those things, it's not going to cover it, but maybe it will at least get where it's like, okay, now this is less painful. That's kind of why I've imagined like computer will probably be April or May. So it'll like, certainly I need to finish drawing this on this computer. And that will be until March. I'll probably also use this computer to do the pulp cover for D versus M3. So that I'll limp along with this. It'll probably be sometime this summer. So that's why it's like, then it's still looking like this is not going to get me there, maybe I will start the tip jar. But that does remind me, if you look at the description for this video, my buddy Jim Lujan, he messaged me, it was, I think, earlier last week. He's like, have you ever thought about doing D versus M merch on like Society6 or Redbubble or any of that? And I messaged back and I said, I've thought about it. I've just never been motivated enough to do it. And he's a good friend. He called me that night and he's like, so you're gonna, like, you need to do it. Just do just a mug. And I was like hemming and hawing, what would I put on it? And he told like do the panel of the kid looking at the flying saucer from D versus M 1979. Just do that on a mug, there, you're done. Just do the one thing. You don't have to have 18 products. Just the one thing. And I was, okay, all right. And that was the only, I just needed that tiny little nudge of like, just do that one mug. So I did that one mug. So anyway, in the description of this video, there's a link if you want a D versus M 1975 mug. It's just very simple, very clean. Now, to be fair, it's not going to help much. You shouldn't do it because you're helping with the computer fund. Because first of all, it's not going to help with the computer fund very much. The cut after you pay, like that, like it's, you know, I think I get something like $2 per mug or something like that, $1 per mug. It's not anything, but it does support me, and it would be nice. And if you, for some reason, you want a mug, who doesn't need another mug? Like, you could go check that out. Okay, I'm way behind on chat. I feel like a bunch of chats came in. What's going on? One monitor had wrestling from Japan. One had logo designs. No. I think there's actually neuroscience to back this up too. But I am a strong opinion that your brain is only capable of handling really concentrating on two things at once. And that's top. It's only really good at that. It's only really designed to do that. And you might think like, well, that allows for some multitasking. Not really, because when you think about things that could fill up those check marks, like for example, let's say you're having a little carpal tunnel. So thank God I'm not, but let's say you're having a little bit of a carpal tunnel problem and you're working, you're drawing. There's your two things, you're done. Anything else, I think now is distraction because you're thinking about how your wrist kind of hurts and you're thinking about your work. Maybe you're listening to music while you work. There's your two things. If you have work and music and then a second screen with your Facebook chat open, now you're scattered. Like I said, I think there's some neuroscience to back it up. You can experiment with it on yourself. Like, for example, this is how I've played with it. There's lots of ways I've experimented with this, but the way I used it most practically, I hate going to the dentist. I go as often as I'm supposed to, and if I need work done, I get work done, but I hate it. When they're sitting and digging around doing something uncomfortable, something that I don't like thinking about, they have a TV on the top, on the ceiling for you to look at. I will look at the TV, but then I'll press my fingernail into my thumb, so I'm thinking about that. Or I'll press my toes in the bottom of my shoe. So when I'm thinking about TV and this, it actually makes a huge difference. It's hard for your brain to think about three things very actively at once. Try it yourself. Anyway. Swatch. Target display mode will turn your old iMac into a monitor. I'm going to write that down to look into it later. That would be nice. At least, I wouldn't want it as a long-term solution. Eventually, I would like a higher res monitor because, again, this monitor is just as old as the iMac. It's like 2013 or something. But if it means I can delay buying a nice monitor for 6 months because I can limp along with this, then I would prefer that. So I'll thank you for that suggestion. I'll look into that. Yeah, subs and views. Yeah. Let's see here. Number 3. It's getting close. It's getting close. Hello, everybody. Yes. Good old Jim. Paul Pay, everyone's showing up. Yeah, Jim, it's funny. But what's funny about it is, like, we have a lot. It's funny, our work is very different. I don't know, in some ways it's not, though. But our work is very different, but we find we have a lot in common creatively, at least in terms of how we work and how we think about it. And I shouldn't say how we work. I think our processes are totally different. And I think and you can see it in like the end result, like where our preoccupations lie. But in terms of just the very, very base level, like how we think about creativity and how we think about doing the work and what our ambition is with it and what we're trying, I think that's where we're very much on the same page. And we both often have talked about how we don't have many deficits when it comes to making. We have a lot of deficits when it comes to anything that doesn't involve the making. Like, I think, and I don't want to speak specifically for him, but I know he and I have talked about this a lot. Like, we definitely have a tendency we're self-motivated, we're ready to take on projects, we follow through with them, we get them out the door, and then we immediately turn our attention to like the next thing, or very close to immediately. And we're very bad at promotion, networking, contacting people who might be able to help you, basically anything outside the like making the thing. It's not, I don't know if it's even that we're bad at it. It's not fun or interesting to us, so we just don't do it. So that's shock merch at some point. Yeah. What I would really like to figure out is, as I alluded with like the margins, if there is some way to do some of that myself. What I don't want is a room full of mugs in my house that I'm shipping out. And maybe that's just, you know, that's the rub. That's why you're paying some, but it is crazy. Like, you know, for example, these mugs, you're under no one's under any obligation to buy any merch from me. But I would rather you buy the comic. That's what it's all about, is the comic. But if you did want a mug, that's great. Thank you. But it is something like $16. And literally, I'm just showing you behind the curtain. I think I get like $1.50 or something, which really begs the question, like, you know, I mean, I guess if someone really wants a mug, it's good for them. It's not particularly great for me. Like, it's, and it doesn't cost me anything. Like, I don't have to keep merch in my house. I don't need to have a pile of mugs. I don't have to figure out, like, you know, I mean, yeah. But, you know, unless you're going to be selling thousands of mugs, like, and I'm not going to be selling thousands of mugs. Like, it's something where, yes, with minimal effort, oh, I find this panel in the book, I do a high-res capture of it, upload it to the mug, list it, they're done. Yeah, sure. I mean, for that level of effort, $1.50 a mug, fine. But it would be great. I mean, in a perfect world, the mug would be cheaper, maybe like $10, and I would get half of that. I missed something, but oh, this is probably how many things can you be concentrating on. There we go. Okay. Oh, thank you, Dee Dee. Yeah, your mission is done, Squatch. Yes, you did. You have. Simple mission printing setups are not cost prohibitive, but mugs are terrible. Yeah. And yet, it's honestly the merch, at least personally, that I'm usually most interested in. I like coffee, I like tea, it's silly, but I like in the morning. Nothing would be more depressing and annoying to me than like in the morning opening a cupboard and having identical matching mugs. Like, it's just me, I guess. I don't know. Maybe a lot of people are like this. I like to pick a mug each morning that fits my feel. Like, whatever. It's like, that's the mug I'm drinking from today. And so I like having lots of mug options. I mean, I'm way more interested, if there's something I like, I'm way more interested in a mug than like a print. You know, some people like prints. Some people love prints. Like, I'm done with prints. I don't need to buy another print for the rest of my life. Like, I don't, there's not enough wall space. Like, I have so many rolled up prints in my closet. No, I don't want any more. Apparel, I'm not really a logo guy. Even if I love something, like, I don't have like a Star Wars shirt. So, like, you know, and that's always been my thing. It's like, I want merch that I would be interested in. A mug is like, yeah, I would like a mug, but you're right. The margins for mugs are terrible. So. Yeah, shirts can. That's another thing, though, that I would never want to. I know lots of people who have done that themselves. They get the shirts printed and they have them. And again, like, I don't want a room full of boxes of shirts, and I don't want to worry about different sizes. And I don't even want to go to a Comic-Con and like, I can't tell you what a little death it feels like to imagine, like, how many mediums do you think I need versus larges versus extra larges? I can't do it. I won't do it. I don't care. No, absolutely not. At best, I would upload an image someplace where someone can order themselves a shirt. But even that, again, going back to like, it's not interesting to me, so it's hard for me to get motivated to do it. I wouldn't buy There's lots of creators. Like, look, you know, I mean, Scott Serkins is a great example. I love Scott. I love his comics. I don't need a Young and the Dead shirt. Like, I would never wear it. And it's nothing about that. I like that stuff, and I like him as a creator. I just don't wear logo shirts, really. I sleep in them sometimes, but I'm not out and about. I don't know. Anyway, this is just me. And this is something, I don't know if, I know Jim and I have talked about this, but I don't remember if it's the same. I have a lot of trouble. It's the same thing with why isn't D versus M available digitally? It's because I don't like digital comics. Now, a rational person would say, yeah, but some people do. So why not? I get hung up on like, but I don't like that. I don't want that. I'm not doing that. You know? That's why there's no stuffed D versus M Marsbot toys, because I don't want that. Okay, wait, where are we at? Oh, that's nice. Yes, I did. I don't have it here, but I bought a mug from Corey because I like mugs. I'm sure the shirts are great. That's not my thing. Yes. No, in terms of margin, prints are, other than maybe digital products are the best margins in the world, obviously. Prints got to be second, right? And I did prints for a long time, especially at cons. And they did okay. And it was nice. Like, that's the thing about prints, because of the margins. You sell a couple, you're good. Like, I mean, you're way ahead. The problem is inventory. And I learned this the hard way, because before I transitioned to comics with D versus M, it was the activity book, the kind of tongue-in-cheek coloring book for D versus M. And then I had prints. And each print was, usually it was a dinosaur. And, you know, each print would be a dinosaur fighting an alien or a Marsbot or something like that. Once in a while, there were some prints that were focused on the Martian side of it, but mostly it was different dinosaurs. I did 3 series. So when I did the first series, I picked 6. I did 6 dinosaur prints. Then I was like, and that did okay. And I did 6 more, and that did okay. So I did 6 more on top of that. So I ended up with 18 prints. That's an inventory nightmare. I'll never do that. And I learned, like I said, I learned the hard way. I'll never do that again. Because now anytime you go to a con, you got to figure out how many of each of these prints am I going to sell. And you don't, like, there's a minimum. You might want, maybe I'll just get 3 of this one. It's never very popular. I'll just order 3 or 4. But of 18 prints, like, now you're carrying in boxes of prints. And then you're managing, like, oh, I just sold another T-Rex. You know, you're kind of cheap. Where am I at with my, it's horrible. It's horrible. That's not what I'm in the game for, guys. I don't want to do that. So I was delighted once the comics started coming, and this next con I'll have 3 comics to sell, 3 different comics. Actually 4, if you consider the pulp edition for $79. Yeah, that's still boxes of comics, but it's so much easier to kind of plan. You don't need this as much space. I don't know. It's way, and it's something I'm more passionate about. The prints were okay. But I don't know if I'll ever print or sell them again. Like, they're just, I think, a relic in D versus M history. Once in a while there has to be a purge, because I do like to buy mugs. So every once in a while I'm looking at what's not making the cut. Yes, I encourage everyone also to seek out Corey's merch. I've noticed that about you, Didi, and it's great. It's great. I can say we all definitely appreciate it and appreciate you. Shirts make terrible inventory because, yeah, nope. Pins, like buttons and pins are That's not too bad. Patches, yeah. Yeah. Things like that are a little more like, okay, sure. Stickers. Stickers I like. And again, because I'll use a sticker. Like I have some long boxes. Every time I get a weird new comic sticker, like from a Kickstarter or something, my goal is to have this long box just covered in weird random comic stickers. Like that's something I'll find some use for it. Same. Yeah. Like I have all the comics, but I don't. Well, and T-shirts for me are a little bit like mugs for other people, where it's like or prints. Like I just have too many. I already have just too many shirts. My drawers are full. You know, I don't need more shirts. I do like, and I've done a lot of postcards, and I've done like mini prints, and that's something I might still continue to do. I'll get like basically a postcard size print done on cardstock. That's something where it's like people can, they can stick it to their fridge with a magnet, they can pin it to the wall, whatever. It's not, and the other thing I don't like about prints, and again, other people don't have any problem with this, and I shouldn't have a problem with it, but I just hate how to actually physically deal with it. Like I need rubber bands, I guess. I got to roll this up. You're worried about people crimping it. Ideally, you'd want a tube so you don't have to worry about them crunching it or them hurting it themselves, but then you're not going to do that at a con, roll it up and put it in a tube. Sometimes I've seen other merch people, like they're just giving it to them in flats and big bags, like just flat, unrolled in a bag, where it's like that thing's screwed. Like and because I've done this, I've walked around a con where you're carrying a print. It's like when you hear women, like, you get them flowers when you're out. Now they have to carry this GD flower for the rest of the night. Like, it's this kind of annoyance now. Like, I don't want to carry a print for the rest of the day at the con. It's enough reason for me to not buy a print. It's like, well, then I'm carrying it around. Like, prints are out, man. They're out. I'm not doing it anymore. There will not be Divas Zem NFTs. No, I'm not. I'm not a super well-researched at NFTs, but just enough to feel like I don't want any part of that. Like, it's not interesting to me. I think there's weird ethical questions. I think there's something vaguely scammy about it. Like, to me, it seems like a whole Fugazi. No thanks. Yeah, stickers, I can make use of a sticker. There was a period, I don't know if it's still the case. We'll see when I go to the con this summer. Enamel pins were the thing. Everybody had to have an enamel pin. Everybody was looking for enamel pins. And I looked into it. And that's another stupid margin thing, where they are no matter where you go, they're expensive to have made. And like per unit, they're expensive. And if you want to, it's kind of like the mug thing. If you want to mark it up in any way where this is worth having, like toting to the con and selling, it gets to a price point where I wouldn't feel right asking someone for that. Like, I don't want to sell you an enamel pin for $15. That's just dumb. It's too much. It's too much. And maybe that's actually very fair, and maybe I'm only making a few bucks off each one. But I just don't think that's a good value, so I'm not going to do it. I'm fine. I would rather sell the comics for 20 each, knowing the number of pages, knowing the amount of work that goes into them, knowing that like you're getting a decent book for 20 bucks. I would rather sell you Divas Zem 1970, and I'm not going to sell it for 20 bucks, but I would rather sell you Divas Zem 1979 for 20 bucks than sell you some enamel pin for 15. Like, I think you're getting more value out of the book. And I'm definitely getting a better return from the book than if like a pin. No, I don't think I'm doing that either. Buttons, maybe. Buttons are cheap. They're easy to get made. They're light. They're easy to carry to the con and back. The margin is like, they're so cheap to make. Like, you know, I'm gonna make 500. You're left with 200 of them. Who cares? Like, you'll sell them eventually. It doesn't matter. Throw them in a bag, throw them in the closet. Like, it's fine. Like, that I can do. Enamel pins, though, no. I don't. They do. They do. Well, especially your art style. It's either, yeah. If I were younger, I'd wear pixel over my jean jackets. Yeah. I will, and you know, if I was still in school, I'd probably put pins and stuff on my backpack or whatever. But that's also, again, part of why enamel pins aren't interesting to me is what am I going to do with an enamel pin? Like, really? I don't know. I'm like a 48-year-old man. Like, what am I, you know, but like the digital comic thing, other people like pins, okay, but I don't. And this is like now a thing I need to think about. I need to, basically I'm making myself a chore. Maybe that's how I'm approaching it. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I tend to think of it as like, do I want this new task? And the only reason I would want that task, it's not enough to say like, well, maybe you'll sell a bunch. It's not, it has to be like, am I excited about it? Then I'll do it. And like enamel pins are kind of, I'm not excited about it. See, when I was looking for enamel pins, I couldn't find anything as cheap as like $1 to $3 per. Maybe I'll have to look again. But yeah, it was something where I just felt like the price I would have to sell these pins at. Or maybe it was once I got into the options, like you're picking number of colors and you're looking at that, it starts to like immediately, I don't know. There was something about it, or maybe the minimum orders were just too ridiculous. At least at the places I was looking, like they wanted you to buy 500 pins or something. And I'm like, I don't need 500 pins. Yes, I assumed. They're cool. Okay, caught up. Let's see. We're closing in on an hour. So my job today, first I want to sort all these voice notes. I don't remember if I completed my thought on the note thing, but I want to sort all that out into all the respective Word docs for each future comment. And then I need to get back to page, we're calling page 51, not exactly for reasons that are, you'll see. Which, well, let's look at it right now, or I'm going to look at it. Could I finish page 51 today? No. I mean, I could if I really pushed, but this is a page that I think it's not all about the little details, but it's going to add a lot to really get into the weeds with it. And that will take time. I think I can finish, what I could finish today would be everything that's in this page is drawn. Like all the major things are in place and there and roughly done. But then I think tomorrow will probably be spent like adding these little touches, adding these little details, making things consistent, really thinking through, you know, like, well, there should probably be a little thing here. I'm going to add something here or whatever. So no, I expect to finish this page tomorrow night. Tomorrow night because I work tomorrow. but it shouldn't go past that. I think, like I said, I think I can get all the basic stuff done today where everything is in place, and maybe even you could call it done, but I won't because I know what I want. Like there's more I want to do with it. So another day and a half, which is fine. That's not too far behind. And then the next page, isn't nearly as involved. Actually, the next 2 pages aren't nearly as involved, which is great. A little break would be nice, because after those 2 pages, I'm doing something I haven't mentioned in a while, but it's been looming, the 2-page spread, which I've budgeted at least 2 weeks, not at least. I'm allowing myself 2 weeks for it because of 2 pages, page a week. Now, I don't know, I won't know until I'm in it if I actually need 2 weeks to do this. I suspect not. I suspect it'll be more like a week and a half. But it might be like a little bit like this page I'm doing now, where what's really going to make it, just leave it there. What's really going to make it is getting into the little details and getting all the little things just so. And then, so I don't know, we'll see how it's going. This becomes like, I think it's Parkinson's law, where however much time, like work expands for the amount of time, expands or contracts for the amount of time you budget for it. The simple thing is like you're in school, you have to write a 500-word paper on whatever, Roman Empire, which is absurd. I mean, that's pretty short for something that big, but let's just say 500 words on the Roman Empire, write it up. If you have a week to do it, it will take you a week. If you have 2 days to do it, it'll take you 2 days. If you have a month to do it, it'll take you a month. Like work it, like you will use the space. Sort of like the goldfish thing. It's possible if I'm giving myself 2 weeks to finish this 2-page spread, I might take 2 weeks and just like, you know, I'll come up with a 2-week version of this. But maybe it'll go where I feel like after a week and a half, like I just love how it looks and I don't want to overwork it and I'm fine. That would be great too. Then I could just move on to the next page sooner, but we'll see. I have no sense yet. I mean, I've been looking forward to drawing this. It's another one of those things I had a vision of very early on. That like, oh, it's going to look exactly like this. It's neat to finally get there. This is kind of the last big weird thing to draw that like I've always imagined drawing for this, and it's just very close to the end of the book, so it's weird to finally be there. But I have no sense of how well or poorly it's going to go. We'll see. We'll see. Okay. Chat is active. Let's see here. Dee Dee and Corey sabotaging. It's not sabotage. I want the chat to be active. Yeah. So I can do a bookshelf tour maybe next week. I can stream from the phone, so I can take it over there. What I can, just handy within arm's length, something I'm very excited about. I've already been flipping through it. I actually shared glimpses of it in, there's an Artcasters chat on Facebook. But I pre-ordered this months ago. I got Rick Rubin's new book, The Creative Act, A Way of Being. I haven't really started reading. I've just been sort of flipping through it. Rick Rubin has sort of become my creative Yoda. I really respond to the way he thinks about how to be a maker, how to be in the right headspace, and you know, it's funny. I was aware of him my whole life. I mean, you know, Rick Rubin, Beastie Boys, like, you know about Rick Rubin, but I didn't like. I don't think I'd ever watched him, seen an interview with him, or I don't know if I could have picked him out of a lineup. And a few years ago, there was a document. I'm assuming it's still on there. There's a documentary series on Amazon called Shangri-La, which was referring to his recording studio. It's somewhere on the West Coast, somewhere in California. I forgot where. Where it's this old like house. It's a big house, but it's basically an old house that was sort of his recording studio / creative retreat. It was all painted very neutral, like it was all just white. It was beautiful grounds, like a lot of grass outside and trees. It was this very serene, safe place. And when he was, you know, producing, musicians would come, and the whole goal was to have this place completely oriented towards being conducive to making and getting the best possible work out of a person. And I watched the series and just not only fell in love with the idea, like I think I told all the Artcasters guys, like I want this for comics. I want some kind of retreat in the mountains or retreat somewhere in a grove someplace or on the beach where like the place is just peaceful and calming and you know, just kind of clear. It creates a space for you to sort of sit and like do at the highest possible level. I loved that idea, but then I also was really taken by him. I thought he was Rick Rubin. I thought he was super interesting, and again, all the things he said, it was like just like I said, like Yoda. Like he was this creative guru, where all the little ways he was talking about things, I was just like, that makes sense. Yes, that's it. So ever since then, I've been nothing. Anytime I see he's doing an interview someplace or whatever, like I sit and watch it. Well, he finally put together a book on all his thoughts on being an artist and the wrong way to do it, the right way to do it. And that sounds wrong, because even he would probably say it's not about like wrong and right ways, but the ways that have worked for him, and the approaches that he thinks are helpful as opposed to potentially harmful or distracting or whatever. I'm really excited to read it. And it seems very easy to read, and it seems like it's a lot of very distilled ideas where you could probably read for like, you know, a chunk, like 5 pages, and be like, okay, now I got to think about that for a little while. I'm going to stop for the day. It would be hard. It'd be hard. This isn't even all, like, this is just all the books in here. I have a whole there's some bookcases above the mantle in the living room, where that's usually, those are for books that those are public consumption books. I like to have books out in like common areas with this idea that if someone was over and they just wanted, like, there's interesting things up here to look at, and they can pull one down and they would have fun flipping through it. So like and some of those would, like these, I think I would like to think a lot of these are interesting books, but the front room books are fun books for sitting on the couch and flipping through while you're having a drink, you know, that kind of thing. Conversation books. Show 3 books. Well, I could do that. I probably have 3 right next to me. Which would be the 3? Should I just, the first 3 I can grab? Well, we already talked about Rick Rubin's new book. Underneath that, for a totally different show, This is a book by Dr. Gabor Mate, The Myth of Normal. He's a psychotherapist. I have not read it yet. I've heard him interviewed a few times. The basic premise is, I don't want this to sound like such a hot take, but it might come out that way, and it's not. But the idea is, the way our modern world is created, there's nothing normal about it. There's nothing healthy. No, I won't say there's nothing healthy about it, but it is not, and this is not a controversial thing. It is not how we were meant to live. Okay. This is me kind of trying to come up with like how I would summarize this book, which I have not read yet, but based on interviews and things. The premise would be that the modern world and like our world is not designed to dovetail perfectly with how we as human beings are meant to live. The kinds of relationships we're meant to have, the kinds of communities we're meant to have, the kinds of jobs we're meant to have, you know, that we, however you want to think of it, evolved or designed, whatever the thing is, that humans were meant, like we're ideally suited to be living a certain kind of life, and that the modern world is not that, but there's a difference. Okay, there's some ways that are not so bad, but then there are other ways that are really bad. And that, so therefore, the myth of normal is that the world we're living in is inherently and inadvertently somewhat traumatizing, somewhat unhealthy, somewhat harmful. And different people are going to be affected in different ways. So it's getting away from this idea of like, so like, for example, looking at the problem of addiction, okay? That it's too narrow a way to look at it to say that there was some failing on their part, that there has to be some admission that the whole community and world around them is defective in a way that can allow for some people to suffer the consequences, and then in some cases it will manifest in addiction. I think like that's, again, based on interviews, not having read this yet, but that was my understanding of like sort of what this is about, and it was enough for me, especially with an anthropology background. I was very interested in that, and I picked up the book. So that's what that's about. And then let's find what's the third random book. Those are, I've talked about all those. What's one? I'm overthinking this, but I'm trying to pick one that I intend to go to soon, like those other two. Oh. Okay. This almost got, when I did the Making Comics pod and it was best of the year stuff, this almost, if we had talked about nonfiction, like favorite book of the year, this is a book, the reason it's still in the running is I haven't finished it yet. I'm 2/3 of the way through it. But This Isn't Happening by Steve Hyden, recommended to me by Chris Ward, if I remember right. It's about the making of Radiohead's Kid A, which is, I think, I named as my favorite album of all time when Jim and I did top 5 albums. And the making of it is really, 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 really fascinating. And the book, I actually don't love this writer. Like, my only complaint about this book is sometimes, like, when he's not, I would prefer a little bit more strict reporting, and I'm getting a lot of him talking about his experience and relationship with Radiohead as a young 20-something. Which I had a relationship with Radiohead as a young 20-something. I don't give a shit. Like, Yes, familiar. I want to know the stuff I don't know, which is how they made this crazy album. And so when he's talking about that, I'm really loving the book. When he's not talking about that, I'm kind of zoning out. Anyway, the short summary on this is, Radiohead, so they started as basically like a very guitar-heavy rock band. They were one of the best. And the album they did before Kid A, OK Computer, some people would probably name that as one of the best rock albums of all time. And I think they could make a strong case. But Thom Yorke, who's a creative genius and also a little bit of a madman, I think he was a little overwhelmed with the burden of how do you follow up OK Computer. And he really went deep into the desert, to try, like what is, and he was, I think, also a little overwhelmed by how huge Radiohead was. Like, Radiohead had become like this crazy burden. I don't know why this popped in my head, but do you remember that movie Gladiator with Russell Crowe? At one point, his friend, I think Jaimin Hansu, I don't remember what the character's name was, but that's the actor's name. Russell Crowe's character's name in the movie is Maximus. And his friend says, that's a great name. You should kill your name before it kills you. I think Thom Yorke, he was feeling the burden of Radiohead, and he was like, I have to kill Radiohead before it kills me. Like, that's my impression from reading this. Where he's like, we can't just do OK Computer +1. We can't become like a parody of ourselves, just making, because I think part of what triggered it was interesting. All these other bands popped up that were basically trying to do Radiohead. Like, Radiohead got big enough where there were weird copycats, like a band I actually like, Muse, for example. When you listen to Muse, it's like they're trying to do Radiohead, Coldplay is arguably like Radiohead light. It's like there's all these bands where like, oh, that's cool, let's try and do that, which really bummed Thom Yorke out. He's like, this is ruining it for me. I don't want to do that anymore. And he went so far in the other direction, like OK Computer and all the previous Radiohead was very guitar heavy. He kind of had the attitude in Kid A, like, guitar's played, like, no pun intended, like, it's over. We're not doing that. And some of the band was freaking out because they had some of the great guitar players, like, what are we doing if we're not going to do, what am I doing if we're not doing guitar? He went in this totally different, he was like, I don't care about rhythm anymore, it's all about melody. Like, I mean, he just kind of had this, like, we have to throw everything out and start over. And it was this protracted, complicated, excruciating process of going to the studio and recording thousands of hours that they just basically trashed. So they're like, nah, because Thom Yorke is like, I'm not feeling it. Like, this isn't right. There's something about that. First of all, I bet at the time it was excruciating, not only for Thom Yorke, but like especially everybody else, all the not Thom Yorkes in the band, where it's like, what are we doing? Like, seriously, are we just going to sit in the studio for the rest of our lives, making stuff and not using it, screwing around and jamming, and it doesn't go anywhere? Painful and awful, but it did result in one of the greatest rock albums of all time. And there is something inspiring about that to me. That Thom Yorke, even in his kind of a crazed way, realized something about this is everything that's happening, our success is going to kill us. So I'm going to just actively reject all of it. I don't care what the audience wants. I don't care what the critics think. I don't care what we've done before. I don't care what you want to do or you want to do. It's my band. We're going in a totally different direction. Get your machetes out. We're going to hack our way into the jungle. And like, there's something about that that's like really inspiring to me. So those are my 3 books that I'm presenting today. Maybe I have enough here, rather than do one big book tour, maybe the next 2 videos I will try to show up with 3 books from the collection I would like to talk about. My show and tell. 3 books, sketchbooks you've read. Yeah. I'm gonna have to look for that. You must. It's funny. No matter how early, you're East Coast, right? No matter how early I look at YouTube, I feel like I see you just finished streaming. So like you must be like, I don't know when you're going online, but it must be when I'm still asleep or something, or still very early and I haven't even looked at my computer yet. Not having pneumonia is a good thing. Books. War of Art, I read that I think a long time ago, but are they similar? I'm assuming you mean to the Rick Rubin thing. I mean, it's certainly the same category of book. I would say I would describe Rick Rubin's stuff as more I'm saying this somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but only somewhat. It's like if your meditation teacher or your yoga teacher or some Zen monk or something was like giving advice on how to be a creative. To me, that's what Rick Rubin is like. And the reason I don't dismiss it as like this is just woo fluff is he's got one of the most impressive careers in music producing of all time. You know, like he's like this guy, at least for himself and the artists he works with, has cracked a code. And he would be the first person to say, like, just, you know, because he does it one way, that doesn't mean the way that's how you should do it, because everyone's different. But that's why I think a lot of when he talks about this stuff, it's very broad. There are no specifics. It's not like this is what you do, A, B, C, and D. It's more just talking about like getting your head in the right space, in a constructive and conducive space. And talking a little bit about frames of mind that are not helpful, or at least will lead you in a direction that may not be the one you want to go in, and why. You know, it's more. You see what I'm doing with my hands? This is Rick Rubin. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. I would say he just did a long interview with on Huberman Labs, that podcast. I think it's the most recent one. I'm checking. Huberman Lab, yeah. I don't know if it's the newest one, but it was up on Monday because it's part of this like book tour. I like that podcast. I don't think he was great at interviewing Rick Rubin, but you'll get enough to get a sense of like what that is. Yeah, definitely check it out. Yeah, no, it's a little. You can tell it's a little overwhelming. There's a lot of potential books to talk about, but I think I'm going to try and do that. In fact, I'm going to make a note. Per Didi, 3 books for the next few live streams. It'll also help me maybe talk about some of the books I intend to read once I'm done drawing. What are the book series on? What did I miss here? Oh, yeah, who did bring that up? Yeah, I think Christopher brought that up, which I was unfamiliar with. But it does sound interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, 8:30 a.m. Eastern. Okay, so that's why. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm Arizona time. So that's why every time I look at you've already wrapped up. So that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, every time I've watched your stream, it's never live because okay. Well, I think I need to get to work. It's 12:25 here. I'm going to sort out my Word doc and then go back to drawing my page. I remember what I needed to do was, and this is something I talk about generally, but I usually don't have an example this week. I primarily work strictly digitally. Sometimes I can't do what I want to do within Illustrator, so I'll draw it by hand and scan it in and, pull that in and use that element. This is going to be a weird in between. There's something on this page that I was sitting the past couple of days thinking about, like, how am I even going to do this? What's the best way? And it seemed like the best way was it's like it's going to be like kind of 3 steps. Draw it by hand, scan it in, pull it into Photoshop, do some Photoshop magic, and then vectorize that and use it in my Illustrator. Like, so and that's something probably today when I feel like I'm sick of drawing, like drawing actual the page, I'll probably save my work and then do and make these elements that I can't think of a better way to go about it than the way I just described, where I'll have to kind of do this long route into something I can easily, and it's like, well, why even vectorize it at all? Because I'm sorting out what to say without spoiling anything. Illustrator has a feature in it, a 3D feature, where, like, let's say I have, this isn't what it is, but here's an example. Let's say I have a picture on the wall, okay? And I have a view of the room where you're not looking directly at the picture, you're seeing it sort of end on, okay? Illustrator has the ability where I could in Illustrator draw the picture, make that a group, and 3D rotate it like this, so you're seeing it, and then like drop it in my scene, okay? Basically what I need to do is something like that. I need to be able to, like, move it around, like, in perspective. And that's something where it would be easier for me, the way my brain works, to just draw it and then put it in Illustrator, and then, like, rather than try and figure out the perspective for this weird scene, like, it'll be easier for me to draw it as it actually would look if you were right on top of it. And I need a few different things, and they're all kind of weird, and that's why it's like I need to do it by hand to get them the way I want them, but then vectorize them so I can manipulate them in 3D. That's basically that's one of my to-dos today. Yes. Yeah. Well, probably why, I mean, you've never been on Artcasters, right? You've never been a guest? I don't recall ever seeing you in the guest list. So, but that would make it they would have to do an early broadcast if they were going to have you on. I'm usually at work when Chris streams, which is why I'm usually just listening. Like, I'll check in and say, like, hey, everybody. But then I usually have it minimized while I'm, like, doing my day job. I'm just listening in. Have a great day, Chris. Yeah, even for me, they're West Coast. Like, they're doing it late even for them, even for California. because I think now with the way the schedule is, it starts at like 10 at night for me, which is, there are some days where it's, some weeks where it's just, like I always try to catch it live, but there are some weeks where it's like, oh, like I wish it was just like 2 hours earlier. Yeah, I think he's been talking a lot about starting the live streams again. I don't know if there's like a plan, like when, or, but he's like, I've been missing his streams too. Yeah, I think busy, and I think he's just was doing a little bit of rebalancing and reprioritizing, and you know, like once he felt, and I know he was definitely feeling the crunch. He had a deadline that it wasn't even my project, and I was anxious thinking. So like for him, I mean, I know he was really like, I really need to work. So I got it. I got that he dropped the live streams because it was like it's almost like that. You can only think of two things at once. God bless him, but like I can't work. This is why you don't see me working a lot on this channel. I can't. You can't. And I know Squatch is probably out there saying like some people do it. Good for them. I would argue, I hope this isn't a hot take, and I hope none of my good friends who do it would be like annoyed by this. I would argue they would do better work if they weren't distracted, monitoring the, you know, chat and talking and whatever. Or at least, maybe not even better work. I can't say that, but they would definitely be more focused. And for me, the focus is important. Anyway, but he said, I think it was the last Artcasters or the one before, is fairly recently. Josh said that his deadline has been pushed off significantly, which is great. And now that's why I suspect maybe he will allow himself more room to do more streaming. I'm assuming those are related. I know he's talked about doing more streaming. I know the deadline got pushed. I'm assuming these are related, but I don't know. Wow. Good Lafferty. Yeah. Yeah. I can't, especially read a chat. Like that's a total, at least wherever my brain is, that requires totally checking out of, like it's changing tracks in a way that it's not good for me. Oh, I think I must have missed that. Oh, extension. Yes. Yes. So I expect, at least the current plan, based on what I've heard him say, is that there will be more Josh streaming in 2023. It does. There are some things I could probably do fine. But actually drawing, I can't. It's part of why, again, two things in your brain. I've talked about this before. It's why I don't like the idea of doing live draws. I don't want that distraction. Like to me, when I'm drawing, like I'm drawing, man. Like that's like I don't. So like, and I get persnickety. Like I don't. I'm not like totally fussy where conditions have to be exactly right. Like that's not it. But I am very sensitive to like, are there distractions here? Am I really concentrating on this? And it even extends to like, it's hard for me to listen to some kinds of music while I'm drawing because my brain is going to it too much. I need the right kind of music where I can I'm enjoying it, but it's very background. It's not something I'm like really listening to. That's why I tend to like soundtrack stuff when I'm drawing because it's, there's no lyrics. It's easier for me just to kind of, it's there, it's adding like some kind of background noise, but it's not, I'm not really thinking about it. Yeah, see, I don't. I don't and I won't. And I like, I like watching other people draw. I like watching you work. I like watching Josh work and Christopher. I really like Christopher's process is kind of fascinating for me. So it's not like, oh, I think it's dumb. That's not like I like enjoying other people do it. But because of my process, I can't. I've made exceptions. There is, I don't know if it's still on, I don't know if it's still viewable, but I did do a live draw with Dan Ekus years ago. And it's fine. Like, I can do it. It's just not ideal for me. And if I was, like, for something like that, which was like a fan art thing, like, let's just draw Spider-Man, sure. But when I'm like, when it's second job, when it's me doing my comic, no. Mods, yeah, would probably help. It is. It is. You know what's funny though? I think when I first heard him, I don't remember when it was. Certainly other people have noticed this. I wondered at first, like, am I listening to Adam Lore? Like, they have there's something very similar about their voices. Once you start hearing, like, you can tell the difference. But, like, at least initially, it was Lore-ish, I thought. Yeah, it is. And it's so, I told him I want to have him on this stream sometime. I got to look at the calendar and figure out a good opportunity, but his process is so, what's interesting to me about his process is it's so different from mine. There is this, and especially like the constant changing of media and the constant, like, there's no right or wrong to this, obviously. But I think I tend to be I would like to come up with a non-pejorative word, but I think I'm way more rigid in my approach than he is. And so it's interesting for me to watch him kind of be like loose about everything and yet still get very good results. Like, I remember from arts classes and stuff, like seeing lots of guys who were very loose and they were turning out kind of garbage. Like, and to me, I think it created a prejudice in my mind where it's like, you need to be a little more serious, because otherwise, if you're results oriented, you need to be a little bit more serious. And Christopher is a good example of, like, there is a looseness and kind of a freedom in his creativity, yet he like produces very good work. And that's, I feel like that's, to me, at least I can't say whether it's common or rare in a universal sense, but in terms of artists I've crossed paths with, that seems rare. And that's what makes his work really interesting to me, is that it's an approach that's very alien to me, that I would probably, and at least in an earlier time in my life, said would never work. And yet it does work, and it works very well. He's super talented. So I would like, when I have him on, I would probably like to dig into that a little bit. Maybe that's, yeah, writing, you have to really be careful about what's going on. It's talk about state specific. Like, your head needs to be in a mode when you're writing, and you need to control the environment a little bit. They have DJ voices. Okay. I'm calling it hour 40. So thank you everyone who came by today. The chat was super active. My plan, so I think I mentioned this last time, I want to get back on a Saturday schedule for the streams. So the next stream should be Saturday, which will be January 28th, January 28th, I think, whatever this Saturday is. Same time, 11 o'clock. Let's check here. Yes, 28th. And then it should stay on Saturdays through the end of the drawing. I don't know what the live stream plan is once I get done drawing this comic, which is, I mean, we're getting there. I think once I finish this page I'm on, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pages left. We're in the single digit pages left once I finish the one I'm working on today. I will probably, as with 97, I will probably start doing a social media countdown once I get to 5 left, where they'll be like, my plan right now is 5 pages left, for example, and then you'll swipe and there'll be some sort of number trivia thing for 79. And they'll be like totally random things. How often something like this happens? How many of these things are in the book? How many, like just whatever, just number related, doing a countdown. Number related facts about D vs. M number 3. Once I finish the last page, my intention is to probably take a solid week off of everything D vs. M related, including this. I might even do like not much of a break, but I might even do like social media break for a week. I might just check out. My goal, I've announced this, is the day I finish the last page, there's a fancy bar like around the corner. Like, there's going to be a celebratory drink in that bar that night. Like, so that's I know that's happening. But then like I'm going to go dark, I think, for a week. And I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to try and just step away from D vs. M for a week, just to kind of let all the snow globe of my brain settle. And then I can circle back and do like edits and tweaks. Like I can read it with fresher eyes and figure out what are the changes I need to make before I submit this to print. I don't write the intro until I've completely finished the comic. Because the introduction of each comic usually, I mean, it's story and it's like there's narrative value to it. There's entertainment value to it. There's storytelling value to it. But usually, first and foremost, what I'm looking for with the intro is I read the book and I think, what is information the reader, I could give the reader that will enhance the story? Like what's the right, you're walking into the story, you don't really know what it's about yet. Where do I want to orient you before you walk into this forest that I planted? You know, like what's the intros are very important for D vs. M, by the way. I hope you're not skipping the intros. You need to read the intros. And they're gonna, no spoilers, become more and more important. Even the first one, when you get to the last one. Like the intro is a lot of where the greater narrative is being woven, okay? But also, like I said, it's orienting you for the story that I'm about to tell. Reading it when it's done and actually seeing it and flipping through it, that usually helps me think about like how do I want to frame this for the reader? And that will help me write the introduction. So that's something I'll be doing. I'll also be doing all the post stuff. There's usually a fake news article. There's usually a thank you page. There's just all this stuff that like I haven't even thought about yet. That will be after my week off. I still intend to have D vs. M number 3 available for pre-order the end of March. Shipping whenever Comics Wellspring can get them to me, but it won't be shipping end of March. End of March, I expect the print order will be placed. I'll have a sense of when it will be showing up. And I can actually, like, I feel comfortable opening pre-orders. With the very big caveat of this is not shipping immediately. This is going to ship in like a couple weeks or something, whatever. And I see no reason, barring some kind of weird mishap, I see no reason to, I think that's still kind of the date. But once I'm more sure of the date, like I'll of course announce that and everybody will be aware. Let's see here. Oh my gosh, there's one more. Where are we at? I think Christopher and Jim Lujan are similar, but they seem to really enjoy the drawing process. Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's something a little free about their process where they're just kind of, it really feels like their process feels more, at least from the outside, I don't know what's going on in their heads, but from the outside, it feels more playful than, by comparison, mine. Or like Josh's. Like, I think Josh and I maybe have a more similar, again, from the outside, I don't know. I think Josh and I have a more similar kind of orientation when it comes to like doing actually the mechanics of drawing. And I would agree that Christopher and Jim seem like they're more of that, like a different category where I feel like when I'm drawing, there's exceptions. There are times where I make myself kind of get loose and free and kind of like chase inspiration. But most of the time, I feel like I'm sitting there and executing a plan. And I have the plan very clear in my head, and now I'm just like realizing it. And that's not what I'm getting from Christopher and Jim when I watch them work. To me, it seems more like it's more like you're it's playful and you're just sort of finding it. So thank you, Dee Dee. I enjoy it when you drop in. And anyone else lurking? Yes. A good comic sound effect for a police siren. Off the cuff, this is how I would do it. I'm not telling you to do it this way. This is my first thought. And generally, I don't trust first thoughts. My internal thing is generally the second thought is the better thought, the first thought. But this is, if I was roughing out a page and I had a police siren, big, you'd hit the wee hard. Wee woo, wee woo, wee woo, like that. That's what I think that looks like. Anyway. Stupid. But that's what I don't know. I don't know. That's what I would do. I actually have something similar to this in 79. At one point a fire alarm goes off. Or some kind of a siren. There's some kind of a siren in this installation. And it's similar, it's not the same where I think a police siren, it has that really sharp, like, pew, like it's real, and then it goes into more of a tone. I don't picture that big shift in it for the siren in the, like the installation siren in 79. 79, I think it's more like a fire, like if you've heard like some fire alarms in commercial spaces, where it's like, beep, 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 beep. Like it's like more kind of like sharp and even. Where to me, like if I was an audio guy, I could describe this better. I think a police siren has more of like, there's more of a sine curve wave to it. It's more like, you know what I mean? Like there's more range in between the peaks and the valleys. Where the one that I wrote in 79 is more like it's very tight and very consistent through. So I don't have that shift. That's why with this, with police siren, I would do like, you know, a big, like loud, and then something reading is more like a tone in the background. I don't know. You've hit on one of my favorite little topics, which is onomatopoeias, like figuring out what I got to write. Actually, I think some for this page. This page, I have a light switch flipped, or like, and it's like it's not like a saw. It's like that, and I have that same light being turned on like 10 pages ago, and I think what I wrote for it, if I remember right, was in very small bold letters, PUC, just like puck, you know, that's that kind of like a little soft, like puck. So that was the sound. So now they're being flicked back. They get shut off. Now they're being flicked back on. Do I just recycle that? But the motion is different. Where before it was being turned on more like, you know, when you just go into a room and it's very gentle. But now it's like you're just hitting it. And I don't know. So then do I just do that bigger, or do I come up with a new sound? Or I don't know. I haven't gotten there yet. That's one of the little things I got to figure out. But yeah. Yeah, I think that's basically, yeah, we're the same page. I think that's sort of where it's a big, heavy, like a strong, sharp hitting your ear, and then like a longer, yeah, and it cycles like that. The only minor thing that I would do with this, I'm not telling you what to do. You know your work better than I do. I personally would remove the space between these two. You know what I mean? Because that's the thing I think about a police siren. Just there's no like in between. It's going like woo, 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 and there's no gap. But that, I don't know. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, aren't you doing black and white though? But you could reverse it. You could have like the WE, for example, dark with a light outline, and the OO light with a dark outline. And that's black and white, like a cop car. Oh my gosh. I don't know. Like, this is why I kind of love onomatopoeias, because it's sort of fun. And I really, sometimes, look, I'm not above doing like a bang or a pop or like a very, everyone's seen that before. But I really get excited when you can come up with one that's yours. So onomatopoeias are fun. Yeah, tick, pop, something like that. It's that little, very soft. Actually, now that I think about it, wait a minute. I want to check something because I might want to change that, because there's very early in the book, a projector is shut off. And I want to see what sound I wrote for that. Because I don't want the light switch to be the same as the projector. I don't want two pucks. I don't want two PUCs. What did I do? Let me see. No, the projector is TUC. It's a slight, or no, TUK. So it's a slightly sharper, clicky sound. I remember that now. Because this is like, you know, it's a big, heavy plastic housing, and it's more clicky. So I wanted something harder than a P. I wanted a T, and I didn't want this C and K read the same in your head. But to me, K has like a sharper quality to it, even though you might say them both as like, you know, Pac-Man and Tuck. It's the same C. It's the same hard sound. But Tuck looks like tick with K seems like a snappier sound than tick with a C. You know what I mean? So I think that's why with this, I made the decision with the projector that I'm going to be TUK. That sounds which in theory sounds very similar to the PUC of the light switch, but to me, PUC is softer. It just looks softer to me. It doesn't look like a snap. It doesn't look like a click. It's more just like a, it's like a, you don't see what I'm doing here. That's puck, PUC. Where tuck, TUC, is more of like that. Okay, now that's it. You've seen the percussion stylings of Gary Hodges today. We're approaching 2 hours. That's plenty. I know I don't want to go over 2 hours. Thank you all for coming by. Thank you, Paul, for bringing up one of my favorite comic topics, onomatopoeias. Next week, should be done with this page. I should be well into, or hopefully even done with the next page. It'd be great if I was done. Then I'd be fully caught up. And I will try to pull up 3 books to share per Dee Dee's comment. So what's this last? This will be the last comment of the day. There's a congressman named Schlapp. Is it Schlapp or Schlapp? Feeling up staffers. This podcaster said his name. Sounds like a wet turd hitting toilet water. It does. It's a terrible name. And what's funny is, this is a great example. If you wrote a story about someone feeling up staffers, and you named that character Schlapp or Schlapp, people would feel like it was so heavy-handed. Like that, if you wrote this, I would say that's not a great name. Not unless you're playing this for comedy. Like this is silly. It's just too much. Like you need a more straight name. But real life sometimes is more ridiculous than the stuff we write. So good chatting with you too. I will see you all next week. Good luck with your projects and take care.